next question is, how well does the network connect? So this morning, this is fantastic. We've got 100 plus people in, I say people because we have one male, I'll get back to that. There's 100 plus people in this room. But don't limit yourself to those meetings. Make connections. This is about getting yourself, some support, some coaches, doing some mentoring. It's an opportunity for everyone. So don't just wait until we have that monthly meeting, quarterly event. I want us to share what we're doing as part of the Women in NetSuite program. And then the communication, how functional is it? Again, you should see this as an ethos of support for you. Please try to find people in the room that are going to help you. Whether that's a coffee.
Good morning, beautiful women of NetSuite and good-looking men of NetSuite. So welcome to the official launch of Women in NetSuite Manila chapter. I am very, very excited. A while ago, Irk asked me, so how long did it take you to prepare this program? He said, really a couple of months. Why? I asked myself, why? I mean, we only have 120 people, but we'd like to make sure that the event today is really meaningful. We want to make sure that we have a very good venue, we have great speakers, and we have great leaders of NetSuite, to be here present with us. I've been working for more than 20 years, and yes, I'm 45. This is actually my first time to be involved in an organization or initiative for women. I've moved from one industry to another, automotive, garment manufacturing, academia, far and back, but this is the first time I'm going to be involved. So you can just imagine how excited and nervous, although I'm not showing it because my boss is here. But this one is really important for me. We also had a very long discussion whether are we going to do it big time. What if we don't sustain it? What if we, let's say after the big launch, after all the giveaways, people will just disappear. But I said, no, I believe in Filipino women. If you want something good, we work hard for it. We give our best to make it happen. So today, to officially open, what is Women in NetSuite? Women in NetSuite is actually an initiative to help women advance their career in NetSuite. So it actually started by the ladies who launched. It was led a while in January. We attended this meeting in San Mateo, and they officially launched this through a breakfast. So they said that they started this through over lunch. So a couple of women led by our Chief People Officer, Kathy Swickert. We also have Joanne Taylor from HR, Mady from Marketing, Heidi Tobias from Finance, and Chris Robinson from Legal. And then over lunch, several lunches, they said that why don't we formalize this? Why don't we, make it something, formal and official for next week? So, and then there it came about. So they had their first launch in San Mateo, is what Caroline said. Okay, and this is the mission. So to advance the professional development of women at NetSuite through recruitment, sponsorship, networking, education, and advocacy. Okay, another reason why I'm excited about this is that on top of the initiative of just helping women, there are committees as part of the initiative, and we've had several learning sessions, and one of the things that we've been talking to people is that for you to be successful, you should have a mentor. Okay, mentor is like having a professional best friend, someone to coach you, if you have challenges at work, if you have questions about your career, if you have just simple challenges day to day, or someone to inspire you, really work hard for your career. And that's one of the most important committee of Women in NetSuite, and that is mentorship. We are going, number one committee for NetSuite, Women in NetSuite is really mentorship. So I actually volunteered to initially lead the group together with Lisa Lee So we will be having some frameworks. So we will kick it off, and really, I hope a lot of people will be part of it and really, make it official that, women will have the support to get a mentor in NetSuite. Second is the events and education. It's another committee that is part of this initiative. Education is, like what I said, how it started. So lunch and learn is really an essential part of women in NetSuite because, as Filipinos, when we eat, we still talk a lot. So it's going to be formalized as well that we will have, this group will lead the learning session for the Women in NetSuite event. We also have the recruitment. So these are just the first 4 committees. So recruitment will be responsible for inviting more women to be part of the program, and then not just internally, also outside. So one of the things that I've seen that, have observed is that some of the Filipino women are still not into tech career. So this group will really, work hard and reach out to schools and convince women. The tech career is also for them. You can excel, you can actually succeed in this career. And then, of course, communications, PR, and marketing. So like what Caroline said, it's not just picture, but, we need to promote, the programs of Women in NetSuite. We need to let people know. We need to be proud of it, that we are going to accomplish something. So as long as we work hard together, we collaborate, get to know each other, like what Caroline said, and make this program not just today meaningful, but throughout, as long as we're still running it. And I really hope that, this is something that we can sustain in the Philippines. Okay, so if we have not seen this yet, we actually have a Confluence site. So are you guys familiar with our Confluence site? Okay, so that's where we got all the videos that we've shown earlier. We also have, you will see there, so we'll be posting all our events, pictures, and additional learning materials for everyone for you to go through it. And I really, really hope that everyone will really contribute to this very important initiative of NetSuite. Welcome.
And I've only spotted one gentleman, is that right? Good morning. Very special good morning to you. Friends, thank you for inviting me to share, well, my story, I guess is what it is. Forgive the intimacy with which I will tell it, for all stories are personal, even those about work and about career. That's how it is with women. So I will inevitably tell you about myself and my background and my growing years, how I got to become the head of the country's leading ad agency, what I learned from that experience, and then I'll let you draw the insights as you see fit and as your own individual outlooks dictate. I promise to be honest in the telling. I have no slides today. I told you I had a few pages of words. Words are my craft. I am basically a copywriter. That is how I entered the advertising industry. So I will introduce myself. Who am I? I'm not the most accomplished or the wisest, but I'm probably one of the luckiest women around when I consider the fullness of my years. For starters, I'm a college dropout. I never completed my college thesis, and yet I found the job that I wanted. I have never won in any lottery or contest, I swear. Even those things that you just pick out of a box. But I've always had enough for my needs, and during the times when I've come up short, my only recourse has been to ask from the highest source. My requests have always been granted. So I have tried to remain aware of the different ways that grace has touched my life. I married young, for love, and for no other consideration. If I had to do it over again, I would. We have only 2 children, but they produced for us 7 beautiful grandchildren, and you can call that a great return on investment. My mother helped me look after the kids when they were young, and that allowed me to pursue a career. How lucky we are to be Asians and to have such a tradition. I never learned to drive a car. To this day, I do not drive. But I've been to so many places. And I confess that I've never been led by ambition. In fact, my son calls me an old hippie. But destiny has hounded me faithfully and has handed me so many opportunities, and I have trusted that these were good directions to take. The fact that I am here today and talking to you affirms that. I'll ask you to guess how many houses I have lived in since birth. Anyone?
Dozen.
3? 5?
Dozen. One.
10? Hey, 26.
Wow.
Yeah. The 26th was the house that we finally built, our own home, in 1999. And that's just a modest one. My family would qualify as nomads. We traipsed all over the Philippines, but it's a good way to learn that material things do not count, and that most situations are of a temporary nature, problems included. I cannot imagine my mother packing up and unpacking 26 times. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The few times I had to do it in my married life were real tortures. But you know, we had a trunk, we had a crate of books, we had a couple of beautiful frames, some things to hang on the wall, and that was it. And the suitcases. It was cool. In the summer of 2004, barely a month after I had decided to take early retirement so that I could work more closely with my husband's advocacy, he died in a tragic accident, and suddenly I was widowed. Any widows here? One. It would seem that nothing can prepare us for this kind of shock, right? But I have the strength of 37 wonderful years of marriage and companionship to help me cope with the loss, and I have. I'm a senior citizen, way past my prime, but I'm still useful. I have work, good friends, good causes to give my energy to, and whenever the thought strikes me that maybe I'm too old to serve, you know, maybe the stuff that I have to share is just too outdated. I remember one of my favorite Ramon Magsaysay awardees. His name is C.A. Toyama. He's from Japan. He was way past 60 and he was retired when he decided that he would plant a forest in the Mongolian desert. And he did. Mind you, he failed about 4 times. I mean, they had to do it all over again. Can you imagine? You dig a hole, the sand just, you know, rushes right back in to fill the hole. He did it. He did it. And today there is a thriving, beautiful forest and along a huge tract of the desert where there was none before. When we invited him here to take his to pick up his award, he declined. He said his doctor would not allow him to travel because he was already 94. But he sent his younger brother, who was 92. As I said, I'm a lucky woman, but I believe that luck favors those who are ready for it. Looking back, my whole life has been a string of lucky breaks. And if I search for some hint of coherent planning in the pages of those 67 years, I can honestly trace none. My father was an Italian with a spirit of adventure. He was a giant of a man who was 6'4". My siblings and I all took after his height. He had found his way to these islands before the war. He arrived late one afternoon in Manila Bay as a splendid red-orange sun began its descent against an iridescent sky. And the coconut trees were all waving in the breeze. Yeah, one of those, you know, from the old picture postcards. He was captivated, and even more so when he met my mother a few months later. He decided he had found paradise, and in fact, he never returned to his native city, Florence. His only problem was that he could barely speak English, but he had a game plan. He would teach himself, and he did, by reading. He had tremendous influence on us children to think independently, to be responsible residents of the earth we inhabit. He was a real Renaissance man. While most parents would say, you know, keep your feet on the ground, be practical, my father said, nah, go, be free, don't get sidetracked by other people's opinions or habit. Or actually, he said, don't get sidetracked by other people's opinions or habit or bias. Think, do only what you believe is right, always. That's how he spoke. My father was a friend and a teacher. From him I learned that I was the main architect of my life. It was in no one else's hands. While he passed away relatively young at 63, my mother is virtually indestructible. In November she will turn 98. She sleeps beside me, believing that I could use the company after my husband died. She came home from Australia to keep me company. Although my mother had little formal education, she can literally do anything. And she is my master professor in a lifetime course that ranges from high cuisine to repairing electric fans, fixing leaks, trimming hair. I had a career because she was there to look after my 2 children. I owe so much to her. That is how I grew up, along with 3 other siblings in a home full of books. What else? My father did not. He was trying to learn English after all. He did not believe in television, and therefore we had none. To him it was a form of brainwashing. And by today's standards, he was probably right. He eventually relented and he bought us one, but by that time I was first year college. And, you know, yeah. And of all things, I was taking up mass communications. Not having television was very good for us, though. We all grew up with a deep love and respect for books and for reading and for thought and for reflection. From high school, my summers were spent learning darkroom work in my father's photography studio. He was a photographer, he was an artist, which I continued to manage until he passed away. By then, I had married. When I first decided that I would try and find employment outside of the family business, no ad agency would hire me. I was told I had no experience in writing. Well, I was convinced that I had a talent for writing, and with my husband cheering me on, I ran a promo deal. I went around and asked agencies to please hire me at no cost, that I would work for them for 2 months, and if I was any good, then they could offer me a salary. And one of the agencies did take me on, and after a month, they did give me a pretty good salary. So a few years later, I ended up in McCann Erickson as a creative group head. McCann Erickson was established here in 1963. It was a fully owned subsidiary of New York-based multinational network, and it was run like a branch company with expatriates at the helm of it. Known for its big multinational clients like Coca-Cola and GM and so on, it had a kind of an imported aura about it, but every 3 years a new manager and creative director would be assigned here, usually from the US. And the agency turned out some good work. It seemed pretty content in being in the list of the top 10 in the industry. But in the early 80s, a somewhat different kind of guy came to take up his first overseas post here. He was slightly younger than the usual guys who were sent over here, were usually sent out to pasture already. And he became an excellent agent of change. I don't know if he knew it or not, but his effect on the organization was tremendous. He was one of my best mentors. Thank you. He articulated a singular desire, and that was for the agency to become #1. He was propelled by this conviction that the local staff was just the best in the country, the best he had ever worked with, he claimed. And so from Don, I learned that you can believe in certain things, and you can even think out many good plans, but if you do not articulate them, if you don't say them, if you don't tell the people how good they are, they have no power, they don't come into being. Conviction needs articulation. What does it matter how much you love someone if you never tell them that you love them, right? So the early 80s were transformative for our company. Little by little, he coached us into an action plan for market dominance. And his tour of duty culminated in the biggest account win the agency had ever experienced. And in 1986, we won San Miguel Beer and became, by the next year, officially the biggest. Humor in a stress-filled industry, and ours is very stressful. It's probably pretty close to yours. The value of people skills, of teamwork, about the power of positive energy. That's my philosophy, positivism. Energy that can only be transmitted through a consistency of word and action. At that time, my own family was needing a little bit more of my time, and I had one rule: don't bring the work home. Well, first of all, you're never going to get it done anyway. So be where you are with full mind and heart, wherever that is. My husband was very supportive, willingly took on all the school representation and so on and so forth. He was like a mom that I too often had to skip. Well, I did say I was lucky. Under new leadership, we evolved a more participative process at the agency. We started a culture building program, and it helped us discover our team strength. It was very lucky for us that we did that because we were well prepared for the next big change. Mandated by the constitutional reforms of 1987, we would have to be Filipinized by 1992. Not only did we have to be restructured into a Filipino-owned and led company, we had to prove to our head office that total management was equally capable as foreign. This was my secret plot. So very unexpectedly, the job was offered to me. I did not even consider that possibility because I was in creative, and at that time, creative people were considered great risks. They were not great management material. But you see, I didn't know that, and what you don't know can't hurt you, right? So I figured, hey, that can't be too hard. It had been mostly fun anyway. I consulted my husband, my confidence bolstered, I accepted the post. Thus it was my turn to lead. And I discovered that being a woman with a creative orientation was an odd and an interesting combination, both for our local industry, but more so for our international and regional management. In a way, none of us knew what to expect. I mean, this is wonderful to be here and addressing a room full of women, women executives. During my time, that I'd be here, standing here, talking to a room full of men. I knew very well what a gifted group of individuals we had at Makati, Philippines, and not being a business person by training, I led with a simple conviction that you could do it with common sense, integrity, creativity, and that should have been enough. Seizing the opportunity offered by the change of structure, we embarked on a quest for a fresh identity, to disperse and to share responsibility, and these were the activities that characterized the next few years. We wanted to be leaders, not just in reputation. We wanted to be leaders in fact, really leaders. So we put integrity at center stage. And then these were the values. I mean, integrity at center stage, and then came love for family, passion for detail, humor, respect for one another, teamwork, and social consciousness. This last became our biggest differentiator and gave a deeper meaning and fulfillment to our daily grind. It's not so much fun to just keep writing ads day in and day out. I mean, you got to do something to give it back to society. We earned our place of respect in the local industry and in our international organization. I think they were quite amused at our worldwide meetings when I would champion the development of local country managers, especially women. We had too few women internationally. I think we still do, or they still do. I'm retired. So on the topic of leadership, in a Harvard Business Review article that I read many years ago, there were authors who reviewed hundreds of books that had been written on leadership, many of which said the same things in different ways. But they distilled 4 qualities that inspirational leaders shared. And they said that the first was vulnerability, described as selectively showing your weakness. The next was intuition, or sensing, the ability to collect and interpret soft data. And then there's tough empathy, caring intensely about the work and the people. And finally, there was uniqueness, the courage to be different, to hold an unpopular point of view, take a risk, in other words. Not surprisingly, those are qualities that come more naturally to women. With all due respect to our friend here, many of whom have also have these qualities, but they've had to learn how to bring them out because it's not traditional for men to show these qualities. I mean, vulnerability, intuition, you know. These are the things that you're taught in business school. Set those aside, they don't work. And it may explain why today many more women can be accepted on their own terms rather than have to try and fit into a masculine mold of leadership. Certainly I resonated with these, and I can name specific milestones in our quest for leadership when these qualities helped me pass the severest of tests. It was not because I was incredibly brilliant. I just didn't know any better. So I worked with what I had. I also refused to compartmentalize, and to this day, I am of the staunch belief that we must operate from an integrated point of view, that we must identify our center of authenticity to be credible and effective. That is what integrity is. It needs to be whole. To me, it is the prince of leadership qualities. It recognizes we are individuals connected to one another by a common thread. It reminds us at all times that we are part of the whole, and as such, we each have a role that is crucial to the success of the total organization, and that the choices we make will inevitably affect others because we are so connected. The other thing I learned in my 27 years, I stayed 27 years in Makati before I retired. Yeah, it's amazing. I say that, people get, what? Why, you know? That's about 3 times as long as any marriage lasts. But I learned that communication is so important to an organization that wants to succeed. It resolves conflicts, it clarifies roles, it helps build honest relationships, and it binds the culture, the values, the vision. Communication is an art and a skill. Some people are good talkers, some are better at written communication, maybe some are better at sign language or miming. Whatever it is you're more comfortable with, you should use. Leaders communicate and leaders do it well. It can be taught, and I sincerely believe that it should be, but more importantly, it should be practiced. I talk a lot. I talk, especially when it's called for. I speak out. I believe there is power in the selection of words and in the sound of words. Because we were such a big company, I would invite each week a group of 6 or 7 people to have dessert and coffee, and I would chat with them, just to break down the barriers and make the executive offices more accessible and familiar to the rank and file. I also found out from them that every time I called on one of them, if I had a question about some aspect of business, they trembled. It was like being called to the principal's office, and I thought, what? And I'm so nice and friendly. I knew everyone by name, mind you. But, you know, that's how it gets. I mean, the bigger a company gets, that's the feeling. That's always the feeling. There's a feeling of estrangement between management and the rest of the staff. But I would do this. I did this 3 times a week until I got to know everyone, and we got to chat, and we found out that we had the same goals. I mean, we had the same worries about our kids. We went home with the same problems, similar problems every day. We all wanted similar reassurances that life would be okay. And so, since our personal goals were so similar, we shared so much, and especially in our love and concern for children, and in our desire to become better individuals. And so this kind of cemented us together. For many of them, it was the first time they'd stepped into the president's room. I mean, it was just shocking to me. But apparently, this is what happens, this is what goes on in many corporations. I believe that the top executives in any company are a pivotal force. So I treasured my executive committee. I sought to create among them love and respect for one another. Our annual planning was also a group retreat. My favorite place was Isla Naburot. This is a tiny island off Iloilo here. There is no electricity on the island, so you cannot bring an overhead projector, you cannot project numbers, and often we had it all to ourselves. There, without the distraction of phone calls and laptops, we could talk about the things that really mattered to us. I always thought that what distinguished us from the other companies was the tremendous love that we had for one another at the top. That I had a chance to put those ideas into practice has been an incredible stroke of good luck, because from my string of failures, one couldn't have predicted that. I've been asked off from accounts. I've been rejected countless times by irate clients. This it sound familiar? Yeah. I've been in awful situations and embarrassed to death, and I've survived. Spirit and self-respect intact. I was blessed with a great team at Makati. Together, we were brave enough to do the right thing each time we were faced with an unpopular decision. I tried to put myself in the other person's place so that I could see things better. I tried to be consistent. I tried not to ask anyone to do what I wasn't willing to do myself. If I asked them to stay overnight, it meant I was willing to stay overnight and finish the work. You know, that's grungy work, but you have to be willing to do it. The thing is, at the end of all this, I mean, I made many mistakes, and I continue to make them. I don't disguise them. I wear them like a badge of honor. I share the stories. I can see now that even the defeats were important steps that were necessary because they brought us to something better. Perhaps at any other time and in another environment, those traits would have been suicidal. But I was lucky. As I said, my time coincided with changes that were occurring in leadership paradigms. Imperfect as I was, I fit the new order perfectly, and so do you. How conducive is the Philippines to success for women? Very. Back in 2011, a Newsweek special report was released, and it said Philippines tops Asia in Newsweek ranking of the best places to be a woman. I'm not sure, I don't think Newsweek has done this ranking since, but other organizations have. And the survey analyzed indicators for 165 countries as to which countries offered women the most expansive rights and the best quality of life. And the Philippines ranked 17th overall from 165 countries. Women's progress was measured in 5 areas. Treatment under the law, we scored 88. Workforce participation, we scored 89. Political power, we scored 85. Access to education, we scored 92. There are more educated women in this country than there are men. It's not something we have to be inordinately proud of. It just so happens that men at an earlier age, especially among the lower socioeconomic group, have to go have an income. Healthcare was the lowest, 57. All right, so we need to do better in healthcare. But I think about our overall ranking vis-a-vis the rest of the world. Iceland was number 1, followed by Sweden and Canada. The US was number 8, followed by Scandinavia and North American countries. The Philippines took 17th place. The rest of the top 20 were all European countries. Filipino women are more empowered relative to their counterparts in Belgium and the UK. Sorry about that. How did the rest of Asia fare? Not too good. China was number 23, Singapore was number 37. Maybe they climbed up a little bit more. Vietnam was number 45. Only 4 Asian countries in the top 50, and we, the Philippines, at the top of that list. The only ones who got into the top 10. If you check out other surveys, the Philippines is always the top ranked. As far as Asian countries are in terms of having a social environment conducive to women's success. The success, so you have no excuse. You have to rise to the top. Okay. Does success guarantee happiness? Because that's always a question we grapple with, isn't it? Well, think about this. This is one of my favorite thoughts. I have a few books by Deepak Chopra. You know, some people like him, some people don't like him. He writes some pretty good health books. He also writes on spiritual health. And he defines true success as the ability to replicate for others the feeling of happiness. How about that? Success is the ability to replicate for others the feeling of happiness. For Dr. Chopra, you're not really successful unless you're happy. And the thing about happiness is that it automatically wants to share itself. It's contagious, like MERS, like SARS. Funnily enough, the more of it you give away, the more it fills you. Well, this is the thing. Yeah, these are the intangibles that nobody likes to really talk about, especially in business circles. It's the stuff I love talking about. Because when you look around you, you know that not all successful people are happy. And you'll meet a lot of unsuccessful people who seem to be quite happy. You want both. Of course you want both. You want to be successful and you want to be happy. Well, in closing, here's what I've learned. I've learned that pride is the enemy. I mean, fight your ego, fight your pride. That's the stuff that gets in the way of really being useful to a group of, to people. The other thing is know your price. Know your price means the reason I've shared my background with you is that I want you to take away that you have to reflect on your background, what kind of values you grew up with, who you are today. What is your biggest weakness? Because that's the one that'll give you away. That's the one that they put a price on. Okay? If your weakness is material stuff, you've got a price. The reason I could always say to my international bosses, hey, you want to do this yourself? If they asked me to do anything that I was against, what I felt was the way we wanted to run the business, I would say, you can come over here and you can take over tomorrow. And I knew that I could walk away. I could walk away and not feel bad that I left much behind. Because my price was not money. My price was being able to serve and being able to bring up the rest of the guys. So, know your price. Stay around people who know more than you so you can learn. Pass on to others what you have learned, but do it subtly, tactfully. I didn't do this when I was much younger. I've learned. Be passionate about the things you believe in. When you're faced with a crisis and there's a danger of losing something or someone valuable, and I guess this happens, you may lose clients, focus more on what you need to learn to deserve keeping it, not so much on how you can avoid the experience, because all experiences have tremendous learnings packed into them. And then, of course, never forget you believe in a good outcome and articulate it. Say it out loud. Envision it. Remember, good is everywhere. Like luck, it is attracted by those who are looking out for it. Thank you.
Everyone, I'm delighted to be here. Some 10 years ago, as a country manager of Headstrong Philippines, I had the opportunity to provide some assistance to NetSuite as they were starting a business in the country. I hosted them in my floor at Headstrong, and as they prepared to start up their business, I was there to help in any way I can. I was a very proud, and I am still a very proud partner, if you will, of NetSuite, and I track your success, and I track the people that I placed there. I hope there are still people who are still there, right? Especially the QA team. Fast forward, I'm back here to share my thoughts with you. Women in NetSuite is an amazing program for me. So to the organizers, thank you very much. Well, to start with, I'd like to tell you a bit of a story. One day, Adam was feeling really very lonely. And so God said to Adam, I am going to make you a companion who will be called woman. She will cook for you, wash your clothes, bear you children. She will never ask you to wake up at night. She will never nag you. And she will always agree with you. And she will be the first to admit that she is wrong. Adam said, wow, what a woman! How much will that cost me? God said, an arm and a leg. Adam asked God if he could think about it. So he thought about it, and after an hour, he went back to God and asked, well, what do I get for a rib? And the rest is history. So my task is to share with you my perspective on women in corporate leadership and what it takes to get there. So I hope to be able to share with you and to my insights and give you justice to your invitation for me. But I have to set the tone that I am a believer of gender diversity. So on that note, let me go back to Ada. I have to say that I recognize that men and women are wired differently, and their uniqueness in their perspective and makeup are very complementary in any endeavor that a woman and a man get engaged in. So the few men who are here in the hall, you are most welcome in this session. Before I proceed, I just need to acknowledge that in making my presentation, I have used materials from Google Images, YouTube, Facebook, and graphics from Grant Thornton, KPMG, and quotes from open references like Wikipedia. I do have a few caveats. Corporate leadership is, simply put, comprised of the executives and managers who run the company and plot its strategies for the future. And when we place women in corporate leadership, again, simply put, they refer to the women who are the business leaders in corporations responsible for a line or staff functions. It is very important that businesses are led by competent and high-caliber individuals who together offer a mix of skills, experiences, and backgrounds. Corporate boards and corporate leadership perform better when they include the best women and men who come from a range of perspectives and background. Leadership appointments must always be made on merit with the best qualified person getting the job. Can you see clearly in the slide? But given the long record of women achieving the highest qualifications and leadership positions in many walks of life, there is still an unequal representation of women on boards and in executive leadership. For instance, among the government-owned and controlled corporations in the Philippines, only 21% are women. And as a side note, at the Department of Trade and Industry, 56% are women. But at ExCom level, we're only 2 in the ExCom, 28%, 2 out of 7 in the executive committee. Women are successful at university and in their early careers, but attrition rates increase as they progress through an organization. When women are so underrepresented in corporate boards or executive leaderships, they are unable to draw from the widest possible range of talent. Evidence would suggest that companies with a strong female representation at board or at top management level perform better than those without. And that gender diverse boards have positive impact on performance. It is clear that boards are make better decisions where a range of voices drawing from different life experiences can be heard. That mix of voices must include women. The business case for increasing the number of women in corporate boards is just very clear. So let me show you another study. Every year, Grant Thornton, a global professional services firm, conducts a survey on women participation in senior management. This is a 2013 study. The result of the survey indicates that in the Philippines, women represents 37% in senior management. That puts a mark that the Philippines is in the top 10, with China leading at 51%. Compare that to the bottom 10%. Japan only has 7% participation, India has 19%, and notice that in advanced economies, women participation in women management is 21% and below. So it seems to suggest that in the Philippines, women have better opportunities to compete for business executive positions. Isn't that good to know? The business case for increasing the number of women in corporate boards or in senior management is really very, very clear. I would like to show you a particular study of KPMG. The slide is quite busy, but I will just highlight to you what I want to share. And I hope the people at the back can see it. This is KPMG, as you know, is another global professional firm. In the context of professionalizing the board of family businesses, KPMG suggested a process through a matrix that allows companies to examine the diversification of the board. Along this line, they also infused the gender dimension. So let me highlight a few interesting points. Now here, over at the right side of me and the left side of me would be two types of representation. The right side of me would represent external boards, and the left side of me would represent the members of the board that would come from senior executive positions. Now look at different dimensions that are now being required or expected from boards. Out-of-box thinking, top government position. Oh, that's good for me. Academic qualifications, US connections, global connections or view, diversity. What else? Environment. Independence is a must-have, right? Of course, financial expertise. And on the other side, you'll see emerging positions or functions. Functions such as technology is now being converged with e-commerce and IT, right? And you have the convergence of branding, marketing, and communications and media, which in many companies are actually segregated, but it makes sense to bundle them up. And of course, procurement, supply chain, operations, customer service are bundled up when you pick up a senior position. So as you go up the top, what I want to highlight is, and I can say this based on my experience, that coming out from being specialist, you go up the top and build upon a convergence of skills and knowledge that are relating to one another. So it's like building it up from a true life cycle. So now I have to go to how do we get there, right? As women aim to be in the corporate leadership, it is important to know all these things, right? Because this gives us the context, the demand, right? So now we must look at the supply ourselves, that is. It is important to know the top qualities that companies look for in leadership. And if I could summarize them in top 5, I would say that this would be people skills, long-term vision, strategy and execution, innovation, and of course, character. In my opinion, you can be loose with the first 4, but character is a non-negotiable. Unless it is a fatal flaw, right? For the top 4, it becomes a fatal flaw. You know, you ask them to leave. But with character, it's a bit different. So remember that pretty much of our daily living is an interaction with people. Even before women aspire to be in corporate leadership, she, or even he, for the few men here, must know how to deal with others. Awareness of our own strengths and weaknesses, and that of others, our interpersonal skills can help us enormously in dealing with the work, tasks that we are responsible for. So working well with the team as a follower is a good start and is a good training ground for leadership. I go back to character. Character is important as this might inspire others to greatness, right? Not goodness, but greatness. And I quote from Miss Jacqueline Bisset, you know her from The Rich and Famous. No, you weren't born yet. She was a famous international star in the late 60s. She said, and I quote, "Character contributes to beauty. It fortifies a woman as her youth fades. A mode of conduct, a standard of courage, discipline, fortitude, and integrity can do a great deal to make a woman beautiful." So let's go back to what's at stake here. How do we climb the leadership ladder? I've listed what's top of mind because if you go ask people, there's a lot of advice, but let me share with you something that's really close to my heart, right? Coming back from a financial background, I used to be a finance executive, I used to be a CFO, and therefore my perspective is that the best asset we have is ourselves. So early on, our parents started investing in our education, so it is our responsibility to continue investing on that great asset, to preserve and upgrade ourselves by continuous learning. Training that companies provide, platforms such as this are really good things. We should always take advantage of it. Investing in ourselves takes time. Be patient. I had to be patient. Patience is a virtue, and it proves well with me. Over time, my value has increased with the knowledge and the experience I gained. I think that also more than IQ, emotional quotient will be handy, and in today's day and age, it's really something that's needing more improvement in many of our women in all generations. I have witnessed many of my co-leaders in my previous company who failed in this area. Their achievements were really, really fantastic, but they were massively, massively negated in the process of winning because of the lack of IQ. Because in winning, they leave a lot of dead people behind. So developing dead people, okay? Developing our presence is important. It comes with all about how we believe in ourselves, how we behave under pressure. I've experienced on the way this thing about unrecognized biases. You grow with it and you're not aware of it. Today, this is a buzzword amongst men and women alike. Work life and family, that could be a blocker if we're not good at it. Some say it's a balancing act, but for me, it's a daily harmonization because I cannot really distinguish, I cannot really make a separation of life, work, family. Maybe it's me. So my thing is harmonize it, and it requires a lot of management and creativity. There's also a price in ambition. I could be very ambitious and very driven, but reality is there are also things that I want to achieve in life. So I have given up something and placed my bets to reach my ambition, and some of it took me some time. Those are the decisions I made very thoughtfully. For example, I have given up personal time and some opportunities along the way for education and training to develop my competencies. Because while I am a CPA, I know that I have more to give. So in particular, when I switched as a finance executive to become a business leader, I remember spending time regularly with my kids in the study room every night, learning about IT. What's a server? What's database? What is this and like that? What's a bandwidth, right? Until I'm able to adopt it. So these are the concepts that made me understand my business and my clients and to respond effectively. And sometimes I'm really humiliated because, I cannot fake what I don't know. But I have to be courageous in my transition. So that's the price of ambition, which is really, really very good. At this time, I'd like to just show you a video to just break the ice and show you what I mean about biases and all these cultural influences.
All around me are familiar faces.
So this is not an endorsement, okay? And if you may have seen this, but I just want you to.
Places,
Can you start it, please? Can you start it again? I want to let you see the very first one. Okay.
all around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, and their tears are filling up their glasses. No expression, no expression. Mad world, mad world.
Got it? Yes. Very powerful message. This video explains some of the points about mindset, a big playing ground of what blocks our way on the top, which some of it is caused by cultural influences and the lack of self-management. But I think it is something we can do about, and it's something we should be aware of. Now let's move on. Career builder. Okay, how do I reach there to the corporate leadership? Okay, often this is not given attention. When you run a business, you become so dedicated and purposeful, you put attention to details. But if you think of yourself as your asset, you want to make sure that you plan your life and dedicate time to it, right? It's important to incubate our talent, just like a wise investor. Find a mentor, someone you can trust, and build your network outside, beyond your borders. And it's important to build your brand. And in today's day and age, be careful with social media. I remember Miss Philippines candidate, when she was asked, what do you think about today's technology and the like? She said, think before you click, right? So I think that's very important in building our brand. There's a study that says more than 35% of women are being harassed in the social media. So be careful about managing your brand, not only in the social media, but also in the way you present yourself. It needs planning, it needs thoughtfulness, right? We have to plan our goals, share it with our loved ones, and make a plan. Make sure that they have a sign off on it, because they have a stake to it. And for me, I'd say the reason why I reached this position is because I have built a support infrastructure. I'm very happy and blessed that I have a good family, a supportive husband, and a good household infrastructure. My housekeeper, my yaya, my driver, my pool boy, my gardener, who helps me with all these things. And I have my suki in the palengke, and my regular, my tailor and all those that I can just call or they're just a text away. Now, one last thing that I heard from the previous speaker, which is something I'd like to really deal with before I end, because I need to show you another video to just wrap it up, and I'm conscious I only have 5 minutes. This is about authenticity. Authenticity concerns the truthfulness of origins, attributes, commitments, sincerity, devotion, and intentions. That's according to the Wikipedia. So this is the beginnings of all the things, of the asking the right questions, of being resolved to just say, I will have to make the right decisions. So unfortunately, in some sectors, it is what is making decisions is about what is the most expedient. I'm not saying that in my life I have made the right decisions. I did have unsound decisions which were done hastily, but thank God I learned from it. But over time, as we age, which is just a number, we gain knowledge and experience, and we gain wisdom. If knowledge makes a leader sharp and sets that leader apart, it is authenticity that makes the leader even sharper and will last. So, talking about things that sometimes are hurdles that we do not, we make mistakes on, I think the important thing is how to recover and make the most out of it. I'm going to share you a video. It's not an endorsement, but and I wouldn't say that I'm a fan of the person.
It's a shame that there still is that double standard. Sayang daw ako, because I'm a single mother. If a guy gets a girl pregnant, he's a stud, right? But if a girl gets pregnant, malandi siya. But when the news spread of my pregnancy, people were like, sayang, she was at the top of her game. People immediately would make up stories about me or assume that I'm malandi or a woman of the world. Was I unfairly judged? Yes. But then, did it stop me? No. Did it make me stronger? Yes. And will it keep me going? Hell yes. Labels are a challenge. To me, it was challenge accepted. I wanted to show people that no matter what happens to you, it should never stop you from being successful. In the end, I've got to do whatever I wanted to do. And as an actress, I've never been happier. Being a single mom, it's really empowering because there's more purpose. And nothing's greater than a mother's love. Unless, Saya, I don't think so. Can you whip it? Because I did.
So, it's not sayang, right? If you consider yourself as the asset, you put some bets, you make mistakes, but you have the opportunity to overcome it. Now, allow me to end by sharing with you a bit of my life, right? So I'll show you a collage of my portraits, literally happened through the years, right? And as a young child, I've always been wanting to be a leader. I always want to be ako. But over time, I learned my lessons. And behind these selfies, hindi post kong selfies, have been stories of my milestones. I actually cropped them so you don't see the behind. But it's for me, now that I was preparing this speech, this was really a source of introspection for me today, of some of the strategic life planning and reviews, some celebrations of successes, and some of the sadness that came in my life, where lessons have been learned. And though I consider myself already in my age as a mom or grandmom to many of you, I'm also a work in progress, and my story has not ended. But I would sum my being purposeful because I intended to put harmony in my work life, in my personal life, and family life. So, as I look back, again, I'd say I took the risks, I learned from my mistakes, and I could not have done it without God's grace and protection. And with my support infrastructure, my supportive husband, my family, my real few friends, my household helps who've been with me for years on end, my vendors, my colleagues, these are all very, very important. After all this is done, it is about reaching a higher goal, right? Of hopefully leaving some bit of legacy that I hope to leave behind. And after all, I would say to myself, and will have peace in my mind, in my heart, that somehow I have contributed to the good and betterment of society. Maraming salamat po.